Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you free yourself from the crap that's holding you back so you can claim the life you're meant to live. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're going to talk about becoming whatever it is you want to be. Let's dive in. Hi, friends, it's Jen. Today we have Suzanna Helia on the podcast, and I can't wait for you to hear this episode. There are these moments where we meet souls on our journey that there's something that they have to reveal to us. We have something to reveal to one another. And I feel like in this interview, I met a like soul. Now, Suzanna and I have been kind of circling each other for the past year, been aware of her. She's been aware of me, and we ended up meeting for this interview. And I knew she was an amazing human being, but there's just things that this podcast is really all about that she gets. So she has been a CEO. She currently owns a company, a platform, a podcast called Unapologetically Successful. She has been unapologetically successful. She's lived a fascinating life. I absolutely cannot wait for you to hear everything that she has to share in this episode and for you to hear her story of the journey that has gotten her to where she is today and how she can turn around and say, I am unapologetically being the person who I desire to be, the person who I came here to be, the person who I truly am. So everyone, please welcome to the podcast, the beautiful Suzanna. Hi, Suzanna.
Hello, how are you? So nice to be here.
So excited to have you on the podcast. So for the listeners, you have a podcast that is called Unapologetically Successful. And to have a podcast by that title, I have to believe that you've got some nuggets that this audience is just so hungry for. How do you get to the point of feeling like that is a title that I can own, that I can put out there? So what is it that inspired you to create that podcast? What are the stories that led you to the point like where you are in putting that message out there? Why is this something people need to hear?
Oh, this is good. This is good. So unapologetically came from, and I truly have been looking for a name for my podcast. Or even for my sort of, if you like, the brand. And unapologetically successful came early in the morning in one of my, as you're waking up, suddenly that's the right name. This is what I should call my podcast and my sort of media brand. And it comes from what I have noticed, and I have been very, very fortunate in my life to be exposed to incredibly successful people and not so fortunate people. And I'm not talking success only in dollar value, by the way, but dollar value is always such a easy measure, if you like, because that's how we measure a lot of times, a lot of things, right? Dollar value.
In the world that we live in, yeah.
Why is this hand or someone's, one hand earning $5 an hour and this hand is earning 5,000? I was always intrigued by it. And in Australia, so that's first of all, and we can go into the detail of that, but unapologetically successful came from, there is a very much a tall poppy syndrome in Australia. So I live in Australia, in Sydney, and the moment someone becomes successful, there is that notion of must have stolen the money, must be a bad person, how did they get there? And even I have noticed it across my peers, unfortunately, that the moment you go and reach a success above what is their level of success, where they put you or position you, that doesn't fit, doesn't suit them. And I'm actually probably going to lose quite a lot of friends by saying this, but unapologetically, if you succeed, you should not need to apologize because you worked really hard. You got there through whatever training or whatever, risks or whatever you needed to do to get to where you needed to get to. And I'm talking about all ethical success, by the way. And the unapologetically successful is that successful people don't need to be apologizing for their success, and they should not make themselves smaller for someone who has not achieved their level.
Mm-hmm. Have you experienced this yourself in your own growth in your life of coming through, you know, have you yourself felt like when you reached a certain level that you needed to apologize for it? Or have you always had this, like, I don't understand why people are apologizing? I'm curious just from your own experience.
So I was born in Czechoslovakia while it was still a communist country. And interestingly, I escaped. So I escaped. I'm a really good, or I used to be a really good ski racer, and I managed to register for a international race because I was at that level that I could qualify. And I escaped through ski racing, and I didn't come back to Czechoslovakia. My parents lost their jobs, and it was traumatic. But I remember I was a poor student, and yet I had someone come and say, so now that you are in, I moved to Germany, there was just this assumption of either I need to feed I don't know, there was just a little bit of a trauma there. And I mean, a lot of trauma, by the way. But what has happened was that I realized that people don't know your success or what the journey was for you to get to where you are. But the moment you are there, people are very quick to either criticize you or tell you what you shouldn't or shouldn't have done. And the same is even, I don't like talking about this, but you would know this as well. You suddenly buy yourself a new car, or you go on holidays that probably someone wished, or you start your business, like you started your podcasting business 3 years ago. And I'm sure there would have been people who would have wished that they would have started the business. And then you would have lost some friends, I guess, because you have shown them something that you were able to pull together that I were not able to.
Yeah. Why does that? I love talking about this. I'm like, ooh, yeah, let's talk about this because it's true. It happens. It's real. This is real life, that when you reach a certain level or you do a certain thing, there's going to be people, it rubs them the wrong way. It triggers something in them. There's something that they're not okay with about that, which generally, as we know, that actually is something that is not okay within ourselves. And often we don't even know we're doing it. A lot of times we don't know that we're shirking them for that reason. We think they said something, and we don't even know that that's the reason that it's happening. But the truth is that there's something in ourselves that we're not okay with, and what that person has done has triggered that, right? So like, we know that, we understand that, and yet it still happens, and it's hurtful, isn't it? It's hurtful when that happens to you.
Well, the interesting thing is that I just had an episode recently where I after the session have actually kept on asking myself, what have I done wrong? What have I said? How could have I upset this person? Like, I love this person. I deeply, deeply love this person. Why is this person so upset with me? And look, don't get me wrong. I have my ups and downs. I have been on the floor in a fetal position crying because some things didn't work out. Like, I'm not only on the up. Absolutely not. I'm the whole spectrum, the whole rainbow. You have it. And yet I realized that we can't give, if you like, our energy to other people and assume that they actually are receiving it our way and the way we're doing it. We only can take, and we only should take what we can. And just, I always say now, a little bit smarter, I'm sending you a lot of love. It's okay.
Well, you're a very spiritual person, right? So do you believe
in God?
Well, I mean, that could be a question we can certainly delve into.
No, let's not go there.
when we go to that love situation, and I don't know, where's the question that I'm kind of fishing around for is,
can you see the cat in the corner there?
Oh my gosh, I can. He's like, he is not okay. He is not okay. Here's the deal.
He wants to be part of that.
I think we need to leave this in the episode. I'm going to say this to my podcast editor because this is a perfect reflection. The cat is not okay with the fact that you closed the door and he's triggered. The cat is triggered currently, and he is like, this looks like one of those memes that you might see on Instagram where like the dog is licking the window, but it's the cat who is like stretching his entire body against the door.
So I tell you about the unapologetic as well. So
yeah, tell us about it.
So I also have, so I'm a turnaround specialist. So I was a CEO before. I was in professional roles where I was program director, turning, like, my specialty is I'm really good at turning organizations around, improving organizations, growing organizations, right? And what I have learned is in consulting, what you have is you can bring all of the data, all of the processes in place. But if the leadership doesn't own the vision, and when I say own the vision, like energetically really believes that the organization can go to the level, wherever that is, like it could be, let's say you have a corner store that can potentially become a franchise. If the owner of that corner store does not believe that they can become a multi-billion-dollar franchise, that corner store, you can put whatever data, whatever reporting, whatever processes in place, that corner store will always stay a corner store. McDonald's would not have become McDonald's if there wouldn't be a vision that it could become a franchise, it could be a global enterprise, and it could actually become a McDonald's index.
So plenty of people, though, paint a vision. There's the vision. I think a lot of business owners, businesses, there is the vision. So it's the owning. It's the owning
it. And this is where I say, so I have left my last CEO job about a few months ago. And since then, I actually have been approached by a number of organizations to help them to go like, Suzanna, we should be doing better. We are not doing as good. Can you help us? And you know what I'm doing with them? Most of the work is that I'm actually going, okay, let's go back to when you started your company 10 years ago or how many years ago. When you started, what was the vision? What was the process? And then I would look at, for example, the CEO. I'm just using a specific example. And I said, so your job when you started was create a revenue and B, you were at the front, because no one can sell your business as good as you can if you are the owner, right? You are the person. So why are you dealing with tax? And so we're doing now, and who owns this vision of this company the same way? Like, does this person actually has quite a lot of employees. Does the person 3 ranks down below you understands your vision? So we are actually now going and re-looking at what's your vision? Does everyone in the organization still have the vision? How has the vision from the 10 years ago changed to today? So there is no reason why you should be doing $350,000 a month. You need to be doing about $1 million a month. And especially, and it's about, and it's actually starting to work, because this particular organization is now going, okay, so we have now, everyone speaks the same language. Everyone really believes in it. And the belief, the knowing, we are going to be a global brand is really, really important. And it can't be owned by just one person. It needs to be led and owned by one person and then infiltrated down. And that's unapologetic. And that's where you go like, okay, this is what we're going for. And we believe in that.
So you've seen this in business. You've seen it one company. Have you done it multiple companies? What's kind of your history in terms of?
So, for example, the last organization I worked with, or even the one before, it's like you need to. So it's about, don't compare yourself with your peers in the organization. So let's look at podcasting, and okay, so I'm not comparing myself with another podcasters, because the aim is not to be the best podcaster. What is the aim? What's your vision? What's your drive? Because your energy will also attract the people and the listeners and everyone else. And also then you attract the people who will, it's like what you have done, like this is your second. Can I talk about it?
Yeah. Yes, let's do. We were talking about this before we started. So this is so relevant.
Yeah. So this is your second attempt or second rebranding of but now you're owning it. You have a vision. You know exactly what you want to be saying. It's not just, as someone who we both know, Kathy talks about it. It's either a hobby or it's something, it's a purpose, and it's what you're owning and you're delivering. And that's exactly, it actually applies everywhere. Either you're doing it a little bit on the edge, but not stepping into the core of it, or you have now stepped into the core of it and you're now making money on it. You are creating a business. You have an incredible following. You're successful. You're going to places. You have hired a team. You are doing so well because you have taken a full ownership. You created a vision that inspires you and drives you. And it's amazing how the universe meets you halfway.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I can feel the truth in what you are saying. I also love seeing you talk about it because you're so passionate about it, which is like the most fun thing for me, is to watch people get so passionate about what they do and just watching you in your flow. It's so much fun. But I hope that the listeners, I hope you're getting something out of this for you in this reflection of what Suzanna is bringing so apparent to me, is that when I started this podcast, I was figuring things out. I was having fun. I was starting it. I was moving. I knew that there was a calling on my heart, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was. So I just started and I moved along. And eventually I hit a point where I was like, I think I finally get it. I get what my whole like intention is with this thing, and I shifted it. And then it was like I was moving in the right direction. And then really about 6 months ago, I started owning it. And that it was that belief and that owning and knowing that there is literally a vision written out that I firmly believe in, and it's moving it forward. So for you, wherever you are in your journey, where am I? Do I have a vision? Am I owning that? Am I really full embody, like owning that vision? Because like you said, if the leader doesn't believe in it, if you've got one foot, like one toe in the water and not your full body. So how do people go all in? Like, what is it that you think is really needed?
So there's a few things there. So first of all, it's okay not to have the vision straight away. And it's really okay. And you need to allow yourself space. And if it means that you need 3 months to get to your vision, that you also really understand, it's better to allow things to fall in place and give yourself time to really understand what you're standing for than rush into something because, you know, that's what's expected of you. That's what your family expects you to do. And that, by the way, takes guts. The second item is with vision is also allow yourself to dream big. And when I say dream, it's about not restricting yourself to, I use it that the Metropolitan Museum of Arts in New York was an underperformed, I mean, it was great, don't get me wrong. But so Anna Wintour, there is actually a movie, but Anna Wintour actually set up there is now the gala, and it's the fashion gala every year. I think it happens in May, and there is even a movie about it. I think it's called The First Monday in May or something like that. And she had a vision what she can do with an art gallery or a museum. And it's not only now an art gallery or a museum, it's actually a part of New York. It's part of New York scene. It's part of the whole fashion industry. And it's absolutely fabulous. And this is what I'm saying is you have the opportunity to look at anything beyond the limitations of the current existence. So if you are running, let's say, you know, I worked in banking before, and I remember having worked with a very, very inspirational person who said, Suzanna, we are not a bank. We are a technology company. Sure, they are a bank, but you need to be and until today, it's the most advanced and technologically advanced bank in the country. And it's it allowed them to triple their shares and whatever else because they can keep up with the technology and what's happening in the world. It's stepping out of your limitation, whereas, just because you're a girl doesn't mean that you just need to sit at home and cook dinners.
This is very true. Very true. How do you
I have been always a little bit of a rebel. I escaped at the age of 17 and a half, nearly, I think I was 18. And when I say escaped, universe always conspires, whatever your belief is and your vision is. And I remember when I arrived in Germany, and I truly had like $200, had nowhere to go, but the universe actually conspires to help you, to support you, as long as you have really clear where you're going. And yes, sure, you have to work for it. But I coming back to why I believe that everything is possible, here I came with no money. And then suddenly 3 weeks later, at the residence in Munich with like the top echelon of Germany. And I truly was going like, I don't even speak the language yet. And I watched those people. And I think those were the moments that really made me think beyond what's possible.
What was the thinking? Okay. What was the thinking that got you to that point? How did you get there?
I was very fortunate. I call them my uncle and aunt. The lady unfortunately died, but they became like my parents. And they were very successful in Munich, in Germany. And they exposed me to incredible possibilities. And for example, my uncle was a big watch collector. And I realized that what most people talk about as, everyone wants a Rolex. That's not the real success. Having a Rolex is not a success. But if you are passionate about something, and like he explained to me, for example, what makes a watch, and I'm using Swiss watches as a good example because there is so much wisdom in that. And I don't want to sound like a snobby type of person. Trust me, I'm not. But there is so much detail, so much intrigue, so much technology, so much meaning behind creating a beautiful piece of art. And that art is, the story that Patek Philippe is not a watch. It doesn't, of course, it tells you the time, but it's actually something that you built for generations. And the quality of work and the fact that someone actually is thinking about generational, longevity of this product and the beauty of it and the technology and the science of it and the whole intrigue is something that I believe is incredibly powerful, because we should all be thinking about stuff, not just this is what I'm doing today or to show off. It's actually about what are my children going to be talking about? And now it's going to come out so wrong because I'm going to talk about Patek Philippe watches, but grandma had a Patek Philippe watch, and this is coming from her, and she was this person, and then the story creates with it. And I'm using Patek Philippe because it's the product that suddenly creates the bigger story. And if we can, with every single step, every single product we have, create this bigger story, create this generational impact, empower and encourage people around us to create something meaningful and bigger and better, then wow, we've done well. I don't need to be celebrated by my grandchildren. I don't have grandchildren. Okay. I'm too young for that now, but I'm always think about it. Like, what would my grandchildren talk about me? Because I always think about, in the family, there is let's say an Olympiad. And then that Olympiad becomes my aunt was the Olympiad or my uncle was every family has one or two people who are, I call them exquisite. They outliers, they achieve in their own right, or they have been incredible rebels. It doesn't matter, but it becomes the signature of this wider family. And I always want to be I want to be the signature, but in the most positive way. I want to be the encouraging, the everything is possible. We don't need to stay in the forms and norms of what the generational family was. Not that my family was bad or anything. They were fine. But yeah.
I love that you are a rebel yourself, and you're kind of the cheerleader for the rebels, and you're kind of a rebel in your own right, that you're a rebel who's like, yeah, I'm a rebel, but I really care about vision and heart.
I want to be a good rebel.
Spirit. Yeah. Yeah. You're like the good rebel. I love that. That's rebellious in and of itself. So one of the things that people really struggle with, I think I hear, I feel, I know, because it's what I struggle with, is this, I kind of am the rebel. I like being the rebel. I like being this person who is the person who's making a difference. And I think a lot of listeners to this podcast we feel called to something. We feel called to shine. I talk a lot about glitter and shine and magic that we have inside of us that's calling on our heart, but we're scared to do it. We're uncomfortable doing it. It kind of goes back to that conversation we started with, where when we do it, when we do shine, it makes other people uncomfortable. How have you dealt with this in your own life?
Okay, so I have been for many years a girl who tried to fit in, and it didn't serve me. And it didn't serve me in a way that I was deeply unhappy. But deep inside me, there was always this fire, and I was always an outlier. Even so, when I was 4 years old, maybe 3.5, I was in a kindergarten or preschool. It's in each country, it's called something else, but sort of, the age where you're not learning to read and write yet. You are sort of there to play, and
Finger
your
paint
parents
and
are at work.
make a mess.
Yeah. And I persuaded another girl to escape. And we did. We actually escaped.
You plotted the big preschool escape.
It was the big preschool escape. And I remember, so this was the little brain of mine, was that time thinking, okay, so let's just go. It's easy. Like, I developed the whole plan. I persuaded her to go, and we've done it. And we were successful to the point where police had to look for us. And I, until today, go like, what was I thinking that time? But obviously, so I can't be really restricted. It's just my personality. But police had to find us. Like, they had to call parents. Can you imagine 3.5-year-old kids on a run in the town? Maybe we were 4. I don't know. That doesn't make a lick of a difference. And no one knew where we were. And what I didn't realize that with the little brain was that once you escape, everyone is at work. There is no fun. There is no one to play with. And so we kind of were like, so where do we go now? So we walked around the town a little bit. Can you imagine 2 little kids walking around the town? I don't know what people would have thought. I just think that's so weird. And anyway, police found us, and, don't know what happened. Like, I can't remember more other than the teachers didn't like me after. Wonder why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
understand, you traumatized them, but yeah.
That was my first big recollection of me not following whatever was there. And the second one was, so I grew up in Czechoslovakia, which was a communist country, and we had actually a Marxism and Lenin sort of communist education that was part of our subjects. And I remember having this teacher. She was a Russian. I feel sorry for her because she didn't know any different. But she was this Russian lady who had very crooked teeth. And that's what I remember. That's what a 14-year-old remembers, or 13-year-old. And she was talking about how communism is really good, and how capitalism and how the Western countries are just rotten. People are having it really bad. And I just came back from holidays in Switzerland with my parents and going, that's not true. First of all, they drive Mercedes. Yes, I've seen people on the street unemployed, but even the unemployed person was sort of like people where, it didn't look any of what she was describing, and try to create this fear into anyone. And I was listening to it for a few minutes, and then I went, well, you will be here. It's okay. I will be there. I'll escape. Like, I knew it. I had an inner knowing. I will go, I will create a different life. And the different life was life where I can travel and I can do things, because, to be honest, I can talk for hours about the trauma of communism and how wrong it is. But we're not going there today.
It's making me smile because in my purview, you untethered yourself, and you were like, I'm freeing myself of this box. I'm freeing myself of this need to fit into something that doesn't feel like it fits me. And sometimes that's a very physical manifestation of that. And you also mentioned I was just always that person who was trying to fit in. And then it's like, you ended up just breaking free of it, because it's like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good to me to be here. And so many people are living their lives in a place that doesn't feel right and doesn't feel good. And so still we're trying to fit ourselves into that box. And I'm thinking, with your experience, one thing that I'm curious about, just kind of going down this little side tangent, is in the work that you do with companies. Have you seen that too? Like a company trying to fit into the mold of their competitors. You mentioned that idea of comparison. How have you seen that kind of play out in business?
So it's the same way as if you compare yourself as an organization, let's say cinemas comparing themselves with other cinemas is not the right comparison. Cinemas are a opera house. There are so many avenues that can create a very different comparison and what this organization can become. Or art galleries. I love art galleries and I love art, and actually I love life. So I guess we can talk about money, and I go, I love money, and we can talk about,
I love that you can say with confidence, I love money. That's so hard for so many people to say. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I love money and I get criticized for that, and I have been criticized for that. But I love money for different reasons than most people. I love money for I love money for what it gives me as a life. I'm not saying that I'm selling my soul or that I would do something so that I can create this number in my bank account. I'm not talking about it. I'm not about collector of property so that I can say I have it. It's nothing about that. I enjoy the experiences that money can give me. But at the same time, I also know that I have been able to create incredible experiences with not as much money, and everything is possible. Everything is possible. We can create whatever we want, right? So if you want to be whatever you want to create, whatever you want to design for yourself, and you believe it and you own it, you can create it. And that's why I say it's with the organizations, with all organizations. My daughter was 6 years old when I don't know if in America, Westfield.
Nope, not familiar with it.
So it's a shopping center. It's like a huge shopping centers that are built, and like huge. And she was 6 years old, and she goes, I go, darling, what would you like for your birthday? And she goes, can I have Westfield Bondi Junction? Which is, by the way, like a whole suburb of shopping centers.
Dream big, little one. Yeah.
And I said, darling, what would you do? And I didn't go like, no, you can't have it. And I went, darling, so, okay, what would you do with that? And because I believe that one day she can, maybe I am not buying her the Westfield Bondi Junction, but maybe one day she will somehow have something equivalent of Westfield Bondi Junction. And I said to her, what would you do? And she goes, so this is what I would do. I'll leave some of the shops. This is a 6-year-old. I'll leave some of the shops and we will have them because they will bring us money and they can keep on selling. Then I'll create an ice rink so that we can go. And then I create another playground. And then I create area for us that we will be living in, because I think it would be really cool. And then we can all roller skate around the shopping center and have parties, and people and all children around the world can come and play. Like, her vision was so beautiful. She wanted to make sure that it's sustainable, that it provides, the income and the upkeep of it. But she was opening it up to all the kids in the world to make sure that everyone is able to come and play and have a great experience. And I thought, dream. So I didn't buy her, obviously, was the Westfield shopping center. So the following year, this little kid goes, can I have it this year?
She didn't forget.
And I love that. And I want my children not to, and this is where I say is dream, do whatever you want to do. Don't follow. You don't need to become the doctor, lawyer, investment banker. Become whoever you want to be. You don't have to have 100% at school, but be happy and follow your dream. Artists were not the best. You have to leave the creativity. All of the success, or not all, but a lot of the ultra successful people were actually people who had a creative mind and who were able to dream big and were just encouraged to go and be bigger than the current environment. And that's where I guess I am the rebel. I don't conform into the current environment. And it gets me sometimes into trouble, I have to admit.
I bet. I bet it does. This is such an amazing message. So we don't realize sometimes the little ways in which we are kind of hitting our own creativity in the back of the knees and the creativity of others. So if we can just break down that conversation you had with your child and what you did so well there, that so often we don't even realize we're doing to ourselves and others, is she had this idea that seemed outlandish. And when you allowed her to keep dreaming and to explain why and to like go into her details, she was able to just outline this amazing thing that who knows where someday that little dream that she has could show up somewhere in the world and something amazing that she creates. And if you had just said, that's ridiculous, no, what kind of a barrier is put up for her that I can't dream into these wild things that someday for her could become her reality. And it's the same for you, what you said with your amazing story of escaping from the place that you were. You had thought, someday I'm not going to live here. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be outside of this. And that's exactly what you ended up dreaming for yourself. And I don't know if that teacher knocked you down in that moment, if you're just strong enough that it didn't build up a wall for you. But I'm curious, that little girl, like what happened when you had that moment with that teacher?
Thank you. This is like a therapy session.
I don't mean for it to be a therapy session, but
no.
This
is look. You can cut out whatever you want to cut out, or if you don't want to publish it. But so interestingly, I still, so with this particular teacher, what has happened was that I freed myself mentally because I knew that you can teach me it suddenly became like a wash. It didn't actually mean anything. It was passing by because it wasn't hitting anywhere, because I knew I'm out of here. Just get me the first opportunity. I'm out of here. And so it became like, and it still happens to me sometimes. I actually start watching things and people as a movie, and it doesn't even come close to me. And it's, I guess, my protective mechanism. It allows me then not to get in it and be dragged down a path. And instead of fighting this teacher and telling the teacher, look, I've been there, I know what it is. Like, you have no idea. And if you have, I just went, okay, that's your reality. Mine is different.
Thank you for allowing this little bit of therapy, because I think there's something in this for each of us, because something that we are often so good at it also has a shadow side. And so you're like, okay, sometimes this actually kind of hamstrings me in my life, and it's something that I'm really amazing at. So if we can all, separate ourselves from a moment that's happening and watch it like a movie, that really is kind of separating ourselves from what somebody else might be saying to us. But when we're kids, these things sometimes happen and we don't realize a lot of people are tethered from some of these childhood experiences. Somebody might have had that same experience that you had, and instead of watching it like a movie, it's stuck with them forever. And now every time, somebody says something like that to them, they shrink up instead of breaking out in the way that you did. So it's just so fascinating. And I love digging into some of these tethers that we have. And you obviously have just this skill that you've been able to shine a light for all of us on, and this ability to really own the person that you are, and to not fit in and become whoever you really want to be. Like, that's such a strong message. That's such a powerful message, that you can become whoever you want to be. Who do you want to be, Suzanna?
Who do I want to be? I would like to be seen as, actually, it's not about how I would like to be seen. This is what I would like to see myself as, I guess, is more. Frankly, it's more important that I can look in a mirror than how other people see me. And kind, but empowering and encouraging and uplifting. So if I have a lunch with you, or if we have a conversation like today, I want you to later on or tomorrow morning wake up still with a smile on your face, going, I can do more, I can do better, life is good. Yeah, if I can do that for people, that's where I would like to. And even for my children and for people who I touch, full stop. If I can leave that feeling of, oh, I can go for whatever I was always holding back, that would be great.
So powerful. To When you said, what I want to be known for, and then you said, what I want to know myself, like, this is what I want myself to be known for. I want to know myself as kind. That's so beautiful. And that leads directly into this question that I ask every single guest. Final question for you. Where do you see the magic in the world?
Got goosebumps as you said that. The magic is each one of us actually loving, because we are all connected. We all are here together. End of the day, we are all here, one family. And let's just make this as beautiful as possible for all of us. And I'm not trying to be like this humanistic, United Nations going for peace, but there is a saying that it takes the same amount of energy to be happy and kind as it takes to be nasty and, negative. Well, let's just be positive. And I'm a little bit of a dreamer. I am. I do believe in good in people. I also believe that every person in jail is somewhere a hurt soul that one day was a tiny little baby who was, someone's child. And so I think the souls that come here on this planet, all of us humans, we have an opportunity to be nice to each other.
That was amazing. I'm also a dreamer. And before you answered that question, I was thinking to myself, I often say this is my favorite interview, but this is my favorite interview. Like, this is just speaking to you, hearing what you have to share, and just this very practical way. And you've lived a fascinating life, and you have continued to just see the positive, to be a kind human being, to show up and to continue to better the world in your unique way, very much in your unique way. And this message that we don't need to fit in, like, we can be our own Suzanna in the way that you are being the person who you are, and the contributions that you have made to the world, that you have made to, in your children and in the business that you run, and just in all of the people who you've touched in my life and every listener's life today. Thank you. Just thank you for your kindness, and thank you for showing up for this interview today. Thank you.
Can I just also say, disclaimer, I do get sometimes really upset. Yeah. I have fears. I get low. I do have, there are times when I get angry, upset, I cry. I have the whole spectrum of emotions.
Yeah, you're a full human being.
Yeah. Tell me, can I ask about you?
Oh gosh.
Asking the same question. I'm throwing the same question to you.
Oh, the magic question? Where do I see the magic? In everybody's just essence. The essence that is inside of us. I feel like it's so similar probably, which is why this conversation just I feel like I'm just meeting another soul in you, is that it's just, we all have this really unique magic inside of us. And each of us just has our own special sauce. And why I'm so passionate about this podcast and talking about this and talking to people like you is because we're holding it back. And it just feels like it's just let it go, let it be free. And it's what I want. I myself struggle with this. I want to be my free, fullest self. And I want that essence to shine, but there's just so many things that keep it stuck. It's all the things that we've talked about in this conversation that can just keep us kind of fitting in this, wanting to fit in the box and be comfy, because it's scary. It's scary to let that essence, that magic out. So we are magic. Where's the magic in the world? It's us. We are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate, because part of the Unapologetically Successful podcast, and I get to interview incredible people. And one of the really powerful stories, or if you like, tools that was given to me in one of the interviews, was by an Olympian. And she's a runner. And she said, Suzanna, you have to only focus on what's between your two white lines. Because when she runs, those are the white lines. You don't look right or left. And I often actually tell myself that when I'm really, I get upset. I get very sad as well sometimes. And then I do need to bring myself to focus what's between your two white lines. You can't focus on anyone or anything else. This is the moment that we are in a race. Just keep on going.
Oh, that is boom. Nothing more needs to be said. That is so true. One of the most powerful things somebody ever said to me, which is basically that same thing, is that horses race with blinders on. They can't see the other horses. You stay within your lines. It's that really like focusing on what it is that you came here to do, what feels good to you, what is your essence, and not comparing to others. You really brought that home, because we started with that message of comparing to others, but this whole conversation and what you just shared there just really helped us to clarify why that really matters, because it really stops us from being us. It really stops us from unleashing the magic that we really have inside of each of us. Thank you. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
It is Unapologetically Successful Podcast. And I also have an Instagram, Unapologetically Successful Instagram. And I'm building my new website, and the whole media platform is being built as we speak in Switzerland for whatever reason.
Because that's where you were escaping to, of course.
Probably. I will always be, the person who sort of floats around the world. But so hopefully very soon it will actually be able to deliver a little bit more. But the podcasts are incredible. I have learned so much from every single interview. And one thing that I am so actually excited about is that I have started the podcast for not thinking that I'm starting a podcast. And it has completely changed my life. I have met incredible people, and it's cool, isn't it?
It's cool. It's cool. You meet the coolest people. This conversation happened because I said yes to starting a podcast. It's so magical. You just never know where a creative pursuit is going to end up taking you, and you follow it because there's some calling on your heart to it. And so excited for everybody to follow along with your journey, and get to see it as it continues to unfold, because obviously we can all feel the power in you, and looking forward to seeing what is
Jen,
next.
You are incredible. And thank you so much. It is such an honor to be as your guest on your podcast. You're doing such an incredible work, and I have been following you for quite some time, and it is truly lovely, incredible honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're so special. Thank you so much. Boy, howdy. I hope you got as much out of that interview as I did. I feel like I had so many amazing takeaways from Suzanna in this conversation. She really talked about, in the beginning, that idea of believing and owning your vision. And that is what makes the difference. And the other important thing she said is that sometimes we don't know what the vision is, and we need to give it space. We need to be creative and move forward and allow that vision to reveal itself, which is what I myself have done with this podcast. If you want to learn, go back to episode 1. You will hear all of the growth that has happened, and just the owning and the shifting and the becoming the person who I am. The person who I desire to be is the person who I truly am. That's the truth. That is the untethering, is that who you really want to be is actually who you are. You just have a bunch of crap covering it up. So she also talked about not comparing yourself to others, and that really gets in the way of you being yourself, because then you're trying to be other people and not trying to be yourself. And finally, allow yourself to dream big. Dream big, my friends. Allow yourselves to dream big. It's so important that we do this, that we allow ourselves to really say, what is it that I desire? Like, what do I really want to be? Who do I want to be? Do I want to love money the way that she loves money? Money allows you to do so many amazing things. So stay tuned for the Thursday thread coming up this week. I'm going to thread out a little piece, a little something fun from this episode. So stay tuned, and cannot wait to hear what you think of this episode. If you enjoyed it, I encourage you to share it with a friend, share it with somebody who needs to hear it, share it on social media. You can take a little screenshot of the podcast art, share it on social, share a link to the episode, tag me. I will always, always, always re-share. You just keep shining your magic unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time. Bye.